longtime stalker, first-time poster. I'm sorry, I'm a writer, so this is going to be long. This happened about 3 to 4 weeks ago, and only now, as I'm stalking the hot posts, did I think to post it. I live in Oklahoma, so daylight savings takes our sunset from around 7 or 8 p.m. to about 5:30 or 6 p.m. So during the winter months, if you're out past 5:30, you're in near darkness other than street lamps. I live in a rather nice area, up and coming, if you will. To my east is a city that was just like my own little piece of home some 20 to 30 years ago. It has since filled out, hit its prime, and then died down, meaning drugs, homelessness, etc. Where I live right now is between 2 other cities. Overall, I live between 3 different places somewhere in the middle of nowhere. We're a bunch of neighborhoods, churches, and convenience stores just outside of another city's limits. Our high school is surrounded by farmlands, but our neighborhoods are all fast food and parks. Overall, considered a safe place to live, and you get called spoiled if you say you live there because mansions surround the lower to middle class homes. So, I work at a vet clinic about 2 to 4 blocks from my house. Quick to work, quick to home. It's handy. Now, I live with my parents, I'm 17 female, and usually get a ride from them, but I myself do not drive. I'm a kennel tech for reference, which means I take care of all the dogs and the cats, clean the floors and counters, wash dishes, do laundry, and take out all the trash. So, I'm usually there so long that I lock up the place. I work what's considered a night shift, but I'm usually only there until 7 to 7:30 at the latest, when we close at 6. For later in the story, every door and window in our building is made of bulletproof glass, because we get dogs of upwards 200 pounds that come in, and it took one broken window for the doctor to decide that we were getting something safer and less suable. Like I said before, I live in Oklahoma, so daylight savings time hits us hard. It's always dark when I leave, even if I get off at like 5:45. One night, after a particularly long shift, I left absolutely exhausted. Our kennels and runs were filled to capacity, and Greg, who no longer works with us, had dropped his shift and not told anybody. So I, a 17-year-old girl, 5'3", with an addiction to sugar and caffeine, chugged 3 monsters and told my boss I would do it on my own, hoping to impress her. Big freaking mistake. I ended up there until around 8 p.m. Late as crap for anybody working as a kennel tech for a vet clinic that treats only cats and dogs and stops taking walk-ins at 5 p.m. So, when I finally finish, I do last rounds, tell the dogs and cats goodnight, start the last load of laundry in the dryer, and make my way out. I clock out, set the alarm, lock the deadbolt, and take 2 steps before I see 3 dudes loitering about 300 feet away at our mailbox. Keep in mind, this is a residential area. There is nothing but neighborhoods, and there was absolutely no reason for anybody to be at the clinic. There's perfectly good convenience stores and a CVS just down the street for that. For some additional context, our city is slowly losing its spoiled reputation because they're building apartments all around it. To anybody that owns a home and has to pay taxes or keep an eye on property values, apartments are an absolute nightmare. They bring down the value and area safety for a good reason, though some of you will very much argue with me on this. The moment the first apartment building opened up, assaults, kidnappings, sex trafficking reports, they all shot up like the 4th of July. 10 times the girls running away, 10 times the neighborhood break-ins, 10 times the assaults, etc. Me and my mother got away from my abusive dad when I was 12. having lived in the slums of another city before she remarried. So, having that fear that your neighborhood not being safe was something that we were sad to have to see again. Back to the story. I walk out, 3 grown-ass men loitering at our mailbox. I've just shut the door and had to body slam it shut, and thunked the deadbolt into place. All of this is very loud, and by the time I've turned around, they've seen me. I lock eyes with one for a solid 30 seconds. He's tall, broad-shouldered, and his hood is high enough that I can't see his face. Immediate red flags shoot through my entire body, and my heart skips. I do what I've always been told to, and simply try to walk around them, giving them a wide berth. I take a solid 8 steps and hear feet smacking the ground. The first step I hear is all it takes for me to turn on my heel and freaking book it for the door. My key was clutched in my hand Wolverine style, because I walk home with it like that, thank God. I fumble with the lock for a moment, and finally undo the deadbolt. I slip inside, and I feel my heart drop out of my ass when one of them snatches at my sleeve just as the door slams on his fingers. I've never been so relieved to hear someone scream in pain and been so happy that things weigh 300 pounds. I didn't enter the building gracefully, promptly tripping through the threshold in my desperate attempt to remove him from my sleeve, though he wouldn't have been able to hold it for the weight of the door, even if he'd gotten a grip, and face-planting. I immediately started into a panic attack, hyperventilating and sobbing as I tried to get away from the door as fast as possible on all fours. I freaked out even worse when I see blood on my hands and on the floor. I cut my lip open on one of my teeth and smacked so hard onto the ground that I busted my eyebrow. At this point, the alarm is blaring, dogs are barking, and these 3 men are banging on the back door's window. Again, thank God for bulletproof glass. And at this point, they're screaming obscenities at me. I've never felt such fear and seen such evil intent than in the eyes of the guy in front of the trio, looking at me through the glass like I was a mouse to eat, while he screamed that I was and then that I would get what was coming to me. In my incomprehensible and panicking state, I never turned off the alarm. I just curled my ass under the counter and sobbed until they stopped about 15 minutes later. I guess right about then was when the cops showed up, because if you don't turn off the alarm in 30 seconds or less, it alerts the alarm company, which alerts my boss, who tells them whether to turn off the alarm or send help. I was found completely unresponsive to sound or lights, and from what I've told, I wigged out when a police officer touched me. I don't remember anything after crawling under the counter, and my memory starts again when my parents got there. They caught the 3 of them buying finger splints at the CVS 2 blocks away, because apparently the one in the front who tried to snatch my sleeve broke 3 fingers on our big-ass door. Another also kissed concrete like I did our tile, which isn't important, but afterwards I found it mildly amusing that even pieces of crap are clumsy. I ended up getting 2 stitches in my lip and a staple in my eyebrow. I later learned that apparently they'd been watching me for at least a week. They pulled the surveillance tapes and found that they had been waiting at the side of the clinic almost every day, but never did anything because I had either had a ride home or 2 of my bosses had stayed and chatted until 30 or 40 minutes after we closed. All 3 had warrants out for their arrests for drug charges and assaults. One was even linked to multiple car break-ins in the area. None will be walking the streets anytime soon, though I have their court dates in my calendar notifications because I've been asked to testify in court as a witness and victim to assault, since I had to get stitches. I have agreed. Long story short, don't walk home alone. Get a ride if you are able, always check before leaving a building, and never try to walk around. Just go back inside. And creepy people who made me almost crap myself and cost my family about $500 in medical bills and about $300 in psychiatric evaluations, let's never meet after the court dates. Whenever I've been around people in my work industry, I always hear of the horror stories of crazy cults. People getting paid for weird requests and such. But I've never thought with my luck I would have to worry about being in one of these stories. Man, was I wrong. And this is probably going to be a mini-series since it's a bit long. For some background, I'm a very introverted person. I don't go out much if it's outside of my small group of friends. I started doing OnlyFans around this time where it was very popular in quarantine. I had already been on FetLife, which is a fetish-based network like Facebook, but for the kink community. So I was thinking doing OnlyFans wouldn't be too hard, considering I was already involved in the community because of my work at the adult store and my time on FetLife. Usually with friend requests, I don't normally accept them if I don't know the person in real life, due to past events of issues online. My red flag radar was fairly used to sensing something was off if I was in danger. However, this time it was a silent danger that I wasn't prepared for. I had begun posting regular content on my account, and was told to make a Twitter for a following fanbase for my work, which made sense at the time. I was fairly new to the idea of it. I was logged into my Fet to check my messages for the day, and a new friend request popped up with a message. Thank you, insert my name here, for taking the time to read my message. Just call me Wolfie. I'm excited to help you with your OnlyFans account because I see you have potential and I can help. Please feel free to message if interested in working together. Wolfie. I wasn't sure why the message came off so proper with the tagline of something to the effect of join us. It's been a few months, so my memory is a bit fuzzy to all the exact message details, because I mainly wanted to block out as much as I could. I started looking at the profile to see if I would find any reason not to add them to my account, because I was fairly new to having people I didn't know as friends. I saw they were in a pack with several women in all different age groups, and that we all had an OnlyFans and modeling in common, which wasn't something that was alarming to me. I added him back, and shortly that began the introduction into the cult. I slowly started getting more messages in my inbox about how they could help me because I was now one of the pack. I didn't think it meant anything more than being friendly. Something in the back of my mind was telling me to be careful, but stupid is as stupid does, and I paid it no mind. I wish I had now in retrospect. When I was at work, Wolfie would blow up my inbox with messages saying he added me to a group on Twitter that was special because it had all of our pages in it, and we had to do a chain of if one girl posted about her OnlyFans, we had to share it and keep the pack happy, which seemed harmless. That became an every hour a new post was made, and we had to share to do the same in return for hours. I thought this was normal for Twitter since I hardly ever used it. I was put in two chats. The main chat and the one with just Wolfie and his wife, because he wanted to see if I was a good match for their pack. He would often send me photos of them in bed and say things like, "One day you'll be in the middle of us, where you belong." Mind you, I'm in a relationship with my partner of 8 years at this point, so I wasn't sure if he was kidding or not. He would send me messages of him telling me how to post my pages, my photos, and anytime I had updated my FetLife with new modeling photos, he was the first to comment, "This is my cub. Appreciate her, or I'll end you." Things of that nature. I get the whole being an alpha, but it was just getting creepy to me that just seconds after my posts went live, it was already getting his attention. To my knowledge, There isn't a way to get notifications of someone's posts on that specific site, like Twitter, unless he had my page open and waiting. I started to feel more strange vibes when he started sending messages via his wife, and her telling me someday we were all going to get a place in the middle of nowhere where no one would find us, and we would all do sex work together and live together in this wolf alpha-based lifestyle. Which kind of sounds like a cult now that I'm actually writing this. There were 4 other girls that were all doing the same thing, listening and doing everything the alpha said. A few days went by, and Wolfie started really making me feel incredibly uncomfortable with anything that this was. He did a posted writing of his own on his page, and made sure to tell me in the group that I was his favorite new little cub, and this was for my own good. The writing was about how he loved me, and told me to be in his outfit and wait in my room for him. He snuck into my apartment and he attacked my partner. He beat him close to death and brought him up to my room. He wrote that I had to choose who I loved more. He wrote that I chose him over my partner, and that he then dominated me and killed my partner, and I was stolen away to live with him and his pack forever. My stomach dropped out of my body as I reread the story that he had created. The details of my apartment that he couldn't possibly know, the things about my home nobody knew unless they were in my home scared me. I was on edge for days, because I didn't have a clue on how he knew those details. My skin was crawling. I told him I didn't know how I felt of the story he fantasized about me in this world. I knew that this was it, the reason that I had to run. I had to take a break to finish the end of the story because of how creepy it is for me to have to write and relive because it's terrifying. Wolfie kept showing the rest of his pack the story and had me under his list of relationships as his submissive and in a poly relationship with him and his wife. My skin for days was crawling with the fear of me not knowing just how he knew all the things he knew. I never posted about my home. He saw a post of me in a bad mood from a disagreement, but that wasn't cause for him to write a fantasized life of murder and rape and such, was it? The rest of that week, I wore oversized clothing and cried on and off because I was terrified to be alone in my apartment. I showed my partner and friend, and they both agreed that this was not something I would be able to handle on my own. I took myself out of the groups on Twitter for a start, and tried not to draw attention to Wolfie when the girls started messaging me out of the blue, saying they didn't understand why I wanted to be brainwashed by my partner, and that they loved me, and that everything would be fine if I just went with them. I deleted my Twitter and also my OnlyFans because I didn't know what they could find on me. I blocked them all on my new accounts, and I also took down my profile on FetLife and made a new one, with a completely different name and credentials, so they couldn't find me. I even changed my number because Wolfie found out what it was to try and get me to talk to him and explain why I was pulling away. I made new accounts and made sure everyone was aware that needed to know about this potential stalker, so I could maintain my sanity. I thought it was over when a week had passed, and I didn't see any new messages on my new profile on FetLife or my messages. Man, was I wrong. My best friend had checked her messages on Instagram, where, of course, he found me via her. He asked her if she knew where I was and if I was okay, because I had disappeared out of nowhere. I thought I had escaped this nightmare. I went to my Instagram that I had made and had a few different messages from him about him coming to get me to rescue me and save me. I was terrified how far this guy would go for me. Why couldn't he just leave me alone? I blocked him again, and countless times of changing my names and such. I'd finally reached a point of just getting into the habit of bringing my knife to work in my boots and locking my deadbolt when I was alone, because I didn't want to be afraid anymore. This was almost a month of me being terrified out of my mind. I made one last post on my FetLife about him so all of my following could see that I was in real danger. And I was done being afraid and openly said if they were wanting to come for me, I'd be ready with law enforcement and such. Thankfully, after that post was made public, I went to check his profile to see if it was still up, and it was gone. It's been a few months since this happened, and thank God I haven't gotten any weird messages or friends getting anything weird from this whole thing. I wish I would have listened to my intuition about this in the first place. Maybe then it could have been avoided. But thankfully, I am safe from this insane wolf pack cult. This is my first time ever posting on Reddit. I read the rules, so hopefully I don't screw this up. I never had anything to post until today. I went into a home decor store looking for a Christmas doormat, but I got more than I bargained for. I made quite a few dumb decisions that I am kicking myself for now, so hopefully someone else will read this and not make my mistakes. When I entered the store, they had all their Christmas stuff front and center. I didn't see any mats there, and I wondered if they were over in the outdoor section ahead. Now, this store is very large, and most of the time has aisles that are completely empty, as if they don't have enough merchandise to fill all the shelves. The outdoor section is almost all the way in the back, past quite a few empty aisles. I started heading towards the outdoor stuff. Standing near these empty aisles was a man. He looked to be in his 30s, white, shaved head, and I could see his chubby baby face, as he isn't wearing a mask. Besides noticing his missing mask and seeing that he is looking directly at me, I don't think much of him. I'm a 25-year-old, fairly short woman, and not to brag, but I like to think I'm pretty, and I look very unintimidating. As I approached, he shuffled off into one of the empty aisles. When I was passing the one he disappeared into, he very suddenly jumped out in front of me. It scared the life out of me, and I jumped back. He stepped forward, getting well within 6 feet of me, with his no-mask-having self, and he blurted out, "I need you to help me." He wasn't being loud, but he was very close to me. I tried to create a gap between us, but he immediately tried to close it. My gut told me that something was wrong, but before I could do anything, he said, "I need to know where the outdoor chairs are." I pointed without saying anything behind him in the direction I was originally going. I saw that there was no one else back there, and realized it's a good walking distance behind me before there are any people within view. He then said, "No, you come with me and show me." And he got closer and reached out to grab my wrist. I felt my skin crawling and my heart racing, and I snapped, "No, you can see them from here." I flinched from his reach and turned to walk away. I believe that was my first mistake, as I probably shouldn't have turned my back to him completely. I was freaked out, and just started speed walking back towards the front. He was right behind me. He stepped on my heels twice while following me. I started running. If he ever made another grab for me, I didn't feel him touching me. Thankfully, it wasn't more than maybe a few seconds when two people, what looked to be a mother and her teenage daughter, rounded a corner and saw me running. I ran straight up to them. I stubbed my toe on the cart and looked behind me, terrified of what I would see. This guy was right behind me, but when I turned, he turned too, and started walking fast in the direction that he had come from. I was shaking, and the woman asked me if I was okay. I told her that he had been chasing me, and she took me up to the front. My next mistake was not accepting her offer of walking me to the car. It was stupid of me to say no, and it was stupid of me not to say something to an employee there. I really should have said something, but my skin was crawling and I just wanted out of there. When I got back to my car, I immediately left. In my rearview mirror, I saw the guy coming out of the store. Looking all around, he may have been looking for me, I don't know. I don't think he saw me leaving or what car that I got into. I'm hoping it was all in my head. Maybe the guy thought I worked there, maybe he was socially awkward, or had some kind of social issue. Either way, I'm probably not returning to that store. If it was the kind of encounter I'm worried it was, I'm glad I listened to my gut and just got out of there. So thank you for reading this post if you did. I hope you all have a safe holiday, and if you get anything from this, just order a doormat online this year. And update. I called the store. The manager seemed a bit disinterested, but said he would review the cameras and definitely keep an eye out for him. I talked to my husband, and he took me out after dinner to Walmart and got me a doormat. I feel much better since I called, so thanks for the advice. I'm lucky my story is quite mild in comparison to some others that I've read here, but this really creeped me out, and I'm curious what you guys think. And this is also my first post ever. I work at a little local business, and we're known for being really friendly and chatty with our customers. It's kind of expected of us. Ever since I started working there at 17, there was this guy who had to be in his late 20s, mid-30s, who would come in and talk to me in particular for long amounts of time. He would wear weird shirts that said things like, bearded for her pleasure. But, I mean, to each their own fashion sense, I guess, but, ew. He added me on Facebook at some point, and as a dumb teenager I accepted. And I would reply to his messages, but not too often. I had the feeling he had a crush on me, and I didn't want to lead him on. He started coming in, asking weirder things like, did you go out drinking this weekend? Go to any clubs with your friends? I didn't want to delete him off Facebook because I knew I would have to face him again at work. My coworker and boss noticed that he would linger sometimes for over an hour just talking to me. If I was in the back, he would just stand around waiting for me to come up. About a year ago, he got me when I was alone at the front and the store wasn't too busy, so he decided to vent to me about how he recently got kicked out of a comic convention for trying to talk to a girl who had accused him of stalking her. He was convinced he did nothing wrong and was just trying to talk to her. But why would he get escorted out of a venue by security if it was just a misunderstanding? I kind of forgot about this, and he had come in a couple times since. I remember him casually asking me if I still lived on the corner of Road 1 and Road 2, and I said yeah, not thinking much of it. Maybe 2 days later, I had the day off. I had a shower and then changed in my room, and then did my makeup right at my window, all with the blinds open. I'm 2 stories up, and I assumed nobody would ever actually look up directly at it. I've learned my lesson, okay? I went downstairs, and I was shocked to see him taking photos of my freaking apartment building window. Like, his phone was angled up towards my window. I think he saw me walking out, but I had sunglasses on and walked away quickly. I deleted him off Facebook, and he noticed, and he messaged me within about 2 days after this happening. It's too coincidental not to be creepy, no? My coworkers were so weirded out when I told them. I didn't see him for a couple months, and then he came in one day when I was working, and he was so brief with me. If anything, he seemed almost angry at me. There was enough tension coming from him that when he left, my new coworker who knew nothing about this was like, "Whoa, what was that about? He was acting as if you just broke up with him." It could have been worse, though. Chances are, he probably didn't get a good photo from his phone camera with all the sunlight glares and such. But here's to hoping he hasn't ever creeped out my window before without me noticing. And come to think of it, there's this website called Dirty, where people write crappy things anonymously about other people, and I was posted on there. He, strangely enough, was the one who told me about this. I would have never noticed if he didn't tell me about it. This website was popular back in 2013, and also, my boyfriend was posted on there with the same writing style. I do wonder if this was him thinking back. And then another edit. I don't recall ever telling him exactly where I lived in the first place. First time poster on this sub, and this happened several years ago. For some background and the cast, me as me, my boyfriend as G, my beefy male friends as M and L, and the kids as kids, and the creepy van as CV. It was a summer evening, and me, G, M, and L were all hanging out at G's mom's place. He lived on a dead-end street, nearly at the end, with a forest and some satellite maintenance buildings. The street had a bunch of young kids, probably ranging from 4 to 14, and probably about a dozen kids in total. They would conglomerate at the end of the street and play all day long. They are very cute kids. But on to the story. I don't know what led up to it, but I remember looking out of the front bay window as I was petting G's cat. I often admired the kids playing outside. It always filled me with happiness and nostalgia of my childhood. I saw them playing at the end of the street. As I'm watching these little rascals play outside, I see the CV, creepy van, pull up in front of G's house. I didn't really think anything of it. I mean, it was just a van driving. CV parked in front of G's house, facing away from the kids and the end of the street. I keep watching just to be sure. I didn't remember seeing this van before. I saw two people in the front, a man and a woman. They sat there for what felt like 10 minutes, before turning around and facing the kids. This started to worry me. Going ever so slowly, VC crept up to the unsuspecting kids. At this point, I was scared that something wasn't right. I hollered downstairs to the boys and had them come up. The four of us went outside. Now, G, M, and L, they're all big men. Strong, tall, in their 20s. Like, these aren't the kind of guys that you want to mess with. So, we're standing at the end of the drive, hoping at this point to make CV aware that there are grown men here, and they won't let any shenanigans of theirs occur. But what happened next made me physically sick. CV, still creeping up on the kids, has finally garnered their attention. The kids just stop and stare like deer in headlights. They're not far away at all. I can hear them talking. The kids don't know this van either. CV just keeps going, pushing them to the end of the road. "We don't want your candy," the kids scream. Holy crap. These people are trying to kidnap these kids. My group starts walking toward the CV, yelling, "Hey! Hey!" But before we could reach them, CV turns around in a driveway and pulls back out. They drive past my group slowly. They stare into our eyes, and we stared right back. CV gunned it as soon as they passed us. The van had no license plate. We ran up to the kids and asked them if the people in the van said anything. Most of the kids said nothing, but a few spoke up about the mysterious promise of candy, which, fortunately, they had all been warned about in school. I told them that they were very smart not to trust those people, and that they should all go home. They should tell their parents immediately and just stay in for the night. Ever since then, I watch those kids like a hawk whenever I'm at G's house. The kids are a bit older now, too. I just hope that nothing like this ever happens to them again. Hands down, the freakiest potential kidnapping I've witnessed personally. Thanks for reading. Let me begin by saying this happened to me when I was 13, 7 years ago. Though, this story still makes me believe someone is watching over me. At this age, I was beginning to dress a certain way, which definitely made people think the worst of me at times. I was into the cyber goth culture, which meant goggles, masks, contact lenses, etc. The day started with a trip to the mall. I remember my mother would always warn us, especially me, that when we go there, never to steal or go as far as keep my hands as far up and away from my pockets as possible due to my fashion sense, age, and that I'm an Aboriginal person of color, which also makes me a target for racial profiling. So my mother and my little brother go to GameStop, and 5 stores down is the pharmacy. Right next to the pharmacy is the door to the parking area. So I and my little cousin, who had to be 10 or 11 years old, walk from GameStop to the pharmacy. We pass by the SAQ, which is right next to the pharmacy, and happen to notice a man with a beard. His ethnicity seemed to be Hindu. He had brown eyes, and I know that because of how he was staring as I passed. He was leaning up against the glass outside of the SAQ and speaking to someone. We went into the pharmacy, and I remember feeling like someone was watching me. I paid for my hair dye that I had gone in for, which cost around $50. We began walking back to join my mother when that man from earlier approached from behind me. He started saying to me, "I saw what you did," repeatedly. We both tried to ignore him and just keep walking, as I assumed maybe he was mentally challenged. He managed to separate me from my cousin, who then started running towards GameStop. Without any explanation, he just said that he knew what I did and began pushing and grabbing my chest, telling me he was going to speak with me outside. I started screaming, "Somebody help me!" The mall was packed with people, and everyone just stared as he continued to assure everyone I was a criminal. At this point, that felt like forever, and I'm at the door, and the doors have this really big handles. I remember gripping onto it with, all of a sudden, I hear my mama yell, "Hey!" He lets go and completely changed his tone, and then says, "Yep, go see your mom." Like, as if I needed permission. I ran to her, and I tried to explain before he chimed in and said he witnessed me steal something. She believed him for a second and said, "What?" He then proceeded to pull an empty wrapper of dental floss, to which my mother laughed, saying, "She doesn't even floss." I remember being like, "Yeah, I really bought $50 worth of hair dye, but in desperation, stole dental floss?" I remember my mom getting mad at me, saying they would use my sarcasm against me. He then told my mom that I would be left off with a warning just this time, and pulled out this multi-dimensional wallet that had to be about 50 cards, which he flipped through to show very fast, and then walked away and left out the door. We then went to mall security, which was no help as they told us, "Well, we can't tell you if we have undercover cops here or not. Sorry, bye now." So, yep, that was my very first but not only close call. let me know what you think, and I'll be posting my other encounters with creeps and weirdos. So that, my friends, was a collection of creepy encounter stories. Hopefully you all enjoyed these to the extent that they should be enjoyed, and hopefully they can serve as some sort of educational material for a lot of you as well. Be aware of your surroundings, keep your eyes peeled, and never turn your back to people who look suspicious. If anybody can take anything from these, and the lesson can help them potentially not get into a situation that's bad, well, then I've done my job. Also, of course, there's entertainment value too, to some extent. Thank you to the Redditors who let me read their stories, and a huge thank you to everyone who listens. And if you listened to this point, well, I'm going to guess you liked what you heard. And if you did, you can hit that little subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. You can also hit that thumbs up button, support the channel by following me on any of my social media platforms, or joining me on Patreon or channel memberships. Anyone who joins those will get early access to all my content as I do it, which is a pretty good deal, because I do a lot of content. So, alright. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I hope you are staying warm and safe and all that stuff out there, so, just be good to each other, love each other. I don't know what I'm saying at this point, just be happy. Just stay warm, be happy, be safe, and I'll see you next time. Sleep well.